not every day that your boy here gets to hop on a different show. It's not every day that I get to come into the lion's den and defend a feminist movie against a feminist herself. But I'm going to do it. I'm going to lay the smackdown all over this. I show so much support for feminism on this episode. You're going to be like, yo, where's this ally been all this time? I may even wear a pink hat by the end of this.
I'm excited to see it.
We may see that. But welcome back. Welcome back to Cinema Rehab, the variety show that takes all sorts of different and unique discussions about movies and turn into its own little niche. I am the host of Back to the Classics, Danger Neff, and with me is the co-host here to Cinema Rehab, the one and only beautiful Selina Sous. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic. Now, why am I on the show? Why is Duvall not here? Well, plain and simple, Duvall wanted to cover... Yeah, we did. We were like, we don't need a token black guy. We need more white power in this. And so we said, okay, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm joking. We're so all about Black History Month here. Duvall agreed to cover a show for me, so I was off for a week. I'm covering Duvall this week to help him out. So when I decided to ask Selina what episode we should cover today, she decided to pick a book she's never read before, a movie she's never read before, and the remake that she's never seen before either. And to be honest, I've done two of those three things. I've actually read this book. So would I say I was disappointed that we weren't doing an action movie? A little bit. But you know what? I had a good time watching both of these movies. I watched them practically back to back. It was literally like I watched the 94 version and then I watched the 2019 version. There was an episode of House MD in the middle, so I can make sure that I'm splitting up between the two of them. But I'm ready to do this. Today, we are covering Little Women, the Louisa May Alcott book written in the 1860s that talks very much about a family of four beautiful women, and this is very much a coming of age story. That's in there with a heavy dose of feminism involved. Now, I'm hitting the tone of feminism quite a bit on this, and would you agree that both of these are feminist books, material, movies, whatever you want to call it?
Oh, absolutely. I, like you said, I had never seen the movies or even read the book, but when I was talking about Cinema Rehab before it even had a name, before it was even like officially official, with some friends, and how one of the ideas we had was a classic versus remake. The most popular movie to come up was Little Women. So I thought, okay, well, let's see what's in store for us. Let's see what this movie's all about. I didn't realize how much of a feminist movie it was until like maybe a half hour, 45 minutes into the movie. So almost halfway. And I was like, all right, okay. Yeah. Girl power.
Definitely. Now, one of the rules that we agreed on is we're not going to cover plot so much of this. And there's a pretty clear reason why. This follows the book. Both movies follow the book to such a T that for me to kind of start nitpicking and say, oh, well, this was better and here and this was better, not so much. Both movies are shot differently. The 94 version is much more linear. The 2019 version takes a very unique approach where it's going back and forth with the past very frequently. I won't say which one is better in that case because it's going to be a little bit different. But you are covering the classic. I'm covering the remake, which is part of the reason why I love this so much. A couple of things on the author, if it's okay. Louisa May Alcott is a transcendentalist. A transcendentalist was basically the 1860s version of an altruist. They believed in a lot of different. They believe the core belief is in the inherent goodness of people and nature. Some of the most famous transcendentalists out there: Henry David Thoreau, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Louisa May Alcott being another one. They were very much they try to find the best in everything and believed in being not so much involved with people in itself. They try to build up people as much as possible, but they really had a huge connection to nature, which was very, very huge for them. Because of that, you can definitely feel the theme in both versions of this, of trying to find the best in each situation that they could find out, which is a bit humorous sometimes. But here's essentially the plot. 4 women are growing up during the Civil War. Their father has been shipped off to the Union Army and lived with their mother, Marmee, played by Susan Sarandon in the 1994 version and Laura Dern in the 2019 version. These women, the main star of both of them being Jo, the 1994 version being played by Winona Ryder, the 2019 version played by Saoirse Ronan, have become brilliant writers and decide to kind of tell their life story of the 4 little women that are involved. A couple other key points. One of the sisters dies from scarlet fever. Her name is Beth, played by Claire Danes in the 1994 version, and played by God, what's her name? See, this is why I need to make sure I go over all my notes here before I do all of this. Anyways, they both die pretty early on. I don't want to say early on. Like in the 94 version, it happened pretty close to the end of the movie.
Early.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely.
Yeah, she got pretty early on, but they didn't. I didn't want to say they dragged it on. She got better, and then later on, like towards the end of the movie, she gets really sick again. She's telling Jo, Winona Ryder, how she's not afraid to die. Like she's ready.
Right.
Basically, all she was waiting for was to see Jo one last time, and then she passes, which is just so sad.
It is very sad. And played by Elizabeth Scanlon in the 2019 version. And then 2019 version, the difference with it is there's a very particular scene where Jo comes back and basically wants to spend one more day with her sister and takes her out to the beach. And it doesn't really drag, but you kind of get the idea of where it's going. You also have the character Meg. Meg played by Trixie Alexander Trixie Alvarado in the 1994 version. Am I right on that?
Trini.
Trini Alvarado. Trini Alvarado. Sorry, Trini Alvarado in the 1994 version. You would probably best know her from the movie Frighteners, if you ever saw the movie Frighteners. That's just me. And played by the wonderful Emma Watson in the 2019 version. You also have Amy, who is played by 2 different characters in the 1994 version. The younger version played by the adorable Kirsten Dunst, and then the dry as a board Samantha Mathis later on in the 1994. Whereas in the 2019 version, you had Florence Pugh played both the younger and older version of that. Award-wise, also, I'm sorry. The last one would be Laurie, who plays a big part in this. In the 1994 version, played a very, very young Christian Bale. And a very fascinating, I really was not expecting that. I was like, that is Christian Bale. What is Christian Bale doing in this? And then in the 2019 version, I'm going to be honest, like this guy wasn't I'm sorry. In the 2019 version, it's Timothy Chalamet, who plays a kind of a unique version of him. Finally, the only other major character in this would be Friedrich, which in 1994 version is played by the much older Gabriel Byrne, And in the 2019 version, is played by Louis Garrel, which I'm going to be honest, I don't really know him. I'm not sure how popular he is in France. In the United States, he's not popular, and it's kind of an interesting choice that was what was made, considering the importance of him. Each of these four women go on their own separate paths. Obviously, death being one of them. Amy winds up being with Laurie, even though Laurie was in love with Joe at one point, but they decided over years that Laurie's better suited for Amy. Joe winds up becoming an accomplished author and marrying Friedrich. Meg marries one of Laurie's friends. I can't even remember the dude.
You know, with his uncle or something. He was like living with
Was
him.
it the uncle? It was the uncle.
I'm not too sure. I'm still a little hazy on that. But they were neighbors, so
It's Laurie's tutor. That's what it is.
it's true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
John Brooke, played by James Norton in the 2019 version, and then the 94 version. I couldn't tell you who the guy was. Actually, yes, I can. Eric Stoltz. That's his name.
Still holds.
Stoltz. Stoltz. Finally, and I'm sorry, there is one more character that has some form of importance. Aunt Marsh, who is played by in the 1994 version. She's in Sister Act. She plays one of the nuns in Sister Act. That's really how I know her.
When I saw her, I was like, oh, another one that I know.
Right, exactly. Like you're sitting there afterwards saying like, oh, I know this person. I really know this person. Why do I know
And
this
it's so sad because a year later she passed away.
Yeah. But I guess that kind of makes sense. Mary Wicks is her name in 1994. And then Meryl Streep plays the 2019 version of Aunt Marsh. So, how about that for casting? Huh? So, we're going to talk a lot about the cast. And we're also going to talk about the importance of what did better to kind of show the importance of feminism either during that time or what basically did a better job of kind of perceiving and showing that. And I guess I will start with the remake. Cast wise, Saoirse Ronan plays a respectable Oscar she's nominated for an Oscar for this. Joe, her version of Joe is definitely different in terms of she's wild, but she understands that she can't be as wild. She understands that her emotions that she's feeling is incredibly complicated, especially when it comes to Laurie. In fact, at one point during the movie, after turning down Laurie's proposal, which was a no-no in the 1860s, she literally is like, if he asked me again, I would say yes, because she understands the importance of basically needing to move on from these childish notions. Like, I could probably find a way to love him. I could probably find this way. Joe isn't so much the main focus, but she is the main focus of this version of Little Women, which kind of takes a little bit of a different turn, because as much as the focus is on her to become the accomplished author, and the difference between this and the 1994 version is that she didn't get help to become an accomplished author, unlike going through Friedrich. She instead became incredibly persistent and really kind of laid down the importance of her owning her own characters for future sequels and whatnot. It was a very, very strong showing for them. Meg, played by Emma Watson. Emma Watson's always been a very reserved actress, which is always weird because as a kid, she really didn't seem like she was going to go that route. So one of the beauties about seeing Meg kind of playing this reserved actress is that in a way, you can really feel that she's older than Saoirse Ronan, and she feels older, even though she isn't fully. That was a very good thing. I wish there was a little bit more of a show to her, because she plays so reserved that by the time she gets married, and by the time there's a very particular scene that both of them that both versions go through, where they kind of where both Megs basically get dolled up to attract a suitor, basically, right? And in the 2019 version, one of the things that I really appreciate about her is she was really okay being the person that she was. And she literally says to Joe that just because your dreams of me having a husband, just because you're not sure how much you want to how much you want to be a husband and be a father, doesn't mean that's my dream. My dream has always been to enjoy, to be a mother, and to be a good wife, to somebody. There may be things that I may want and desire. There may be things I would love to own a fancy thing, but the reality is that I'm really, really happy making my husband happy. That may seem like a bad feminist thing, but there are still women out there to this day that really like to fulfill that role, where they basically like to fulfill the mother hen of the household. Everything kind of runs through them, but at the same time, she plays a major supporting role in this. The real difference with this isn't so much Beth, because Beth plays a very, very sweet version of herself, but they very quickly got to the scarlet fever as fast as possible to kind of show that, unfortunately, she doesn't, even in the book, she doesn't play that big of a part. Beth is a talented pianist, and you really kind of saw the relationship between not the tutor, but the house, the owner of the house next to him, John Lawrence, and how they said that he was kind of this mean person. He didn't show himself to be a mean person, but he really had such a huge connection and kind of saw himself as a second father to her, since, the actual father, Bob Odenkirk, was, at war during this time. And for her to kind of build that connection and showcase her piano skills, which were ridiculous to even showcase. It was a very niche little part of this. The real star of the show, though, has to go to Amy. And this is where it gets a little weird, because in some ways, you're not 100% certain what age you're getting Amy at any given different time. That helps and hurts the movie at the same time. But Florence Pugh's portrayal of Amy, oh, no question, she's amazing. You could tell that she saw herself as being the star. You could tell that she saw herself being this person that's just going to wind up, owning an art gallery somewhere, or she's going to really take life by the horns and just kind of write it. Even her chemistry with Laurie, which Timothée Chalamet does a fantastic job as Laurie, but does it in the form of a more vulnerable version of Laurie. He's very sweet, and very sweet guys usually don't get picked by the person that they want to be with, no matter how good the chemistry is with that other person. The reality is that Laurie didn't, in this particular version, they showed the chemistry between Joe and him, but they really didn't want to confuse the lines between the two. Instead, it felt more natural when Timothée Chalamet winds up becoming that person, winds up becoming that person for Amy, and really kind of taking to that, and Amy very clearly reflects that she very much loves Laurie, but she wanted the world when nobody was willing to give it to her, So when she was finally able to get it, it was almost as if she came out of Joe's shadow in that case. And I think that makes a huge difference in this. It was powerful and emotional, but at the same time, it showcased somebody that deserved to be loved that earned it as much as she possibly could, and that matters. Other good castings: Laura Dern does a fine job as Marmee. She plays a motherly figure just fine. Um, yeah, I think that's pretty much what I really want to cover on the cast. Meryl Streep is always a gem, but there's no compare. Look, I'm just going to tell you, there's no comparison between Mary Wicks and Meryl Streep. Meryl Streep can play any role that Meryl Streep could be cast in the MCU today as the lead superhero, and I promise you, it will sell tickets. That's how good Meryl Streep is. But yeah, I am done with cast.
All right. When I was looking at the casting for the 1994 version, I thought, wow, this is a completely star-studded cast. There's not one person in here that I haven't heard of or who I don't know. Winona Ryder did a remarkable job playing Jill. To get the kind of like carefree and wild aspect of Joe, as well as the very curious and always asking questions and why must it be this way? Why must it be that way? And then very quickly matures into the strong and independent woman who doesn't believe that just because I'm a woman, I can't do this. For example, her writing. After she rejects Laurie's proposal, she had even asked him, like, why must we get married? She ends up moving off to New York, lives in a boarding house, does become an author, but only because she's using the name Joseph instead of Josephine. When she meets Friedrich, he thought it was kind of funny that she used the name Joseph. She had even gotten into kind of a little bit of a heated debate with all these other men at the table in the boarding house, that someone was saying civil rights weren't just for women and for Black people. And then some other guy tries to refute it saying like, oh, well, they already passed the 15th Amendment. So I don't understand why they're still upset. And she kind of gives him a look like, are you serious right now? And somebody else said, yes, for Black men to vote, but not for women to do anything. And he makes a comment about like women's suffrage and stuff like that. And she hands it right back to him. And at that moment I was like, yes. She was very much, even though she wasn't the oldest, I feel like she did take care of the younger two sisters very well. So she was a very motherly figure. And I feel that's another reason why she didn't want to just up and get married and have a family of her own. Oh my gosh, what was her name? Meg, the oldest sister. She was very proper, I guess you could say, for those times. She did what she was supposed to do. She did her coming of age party. She was courting. Very, very typical, I guess you could say, of a woman in the 1860s. She did look after Joe a lot, and I feel like she worried for Joe because of how different she was. Claire Danes, I think, did a really great job playing Beth. You did hit the mark saying that she didn't have a huge role in the movie, which makes me sad because I feel like they could have done a lot more with her. And Kirsten Dunst, that little cutie back in the 90s. I think they couldn't have found anybody more perfect to play her. The only gripe that I have with this is that when they fast forwarded 4 years, they had somebody else play her. But I understand why, because there was no way to make Kirsten Dunst at that time look like she was in her late teens, early 20s. But I really did like the character of Amy, young and older. Very strong, very, I don't need you to help me out with anything. Um, ends up falling in love with Lori. Kind of weird to me. I don't think I would want to even date somebody that was in love with my sister, let alone marry, but different times, I guess. I think that Christian Bale did a really, really great job playing Laurie. I was pleasantly surprised. Um, you think Christian Bale back then, you think like American Psycho and like all these other movies. When I saw he was in the movie, I thought, this is going to be really interesting. And there he is, handsome young stud. um, no, a really great job, especially the chemistry that he had with Winona Ryder. When they're growing up and they're, ice skating or they're doing plays in the attic with the other sisters. Um, their chemistry that they had on screen, like, I bought it. I felt like they were truly best friends, even in real life. But then we have Susan Sarandon, and she can do no wrong. I think she did an amazing job playing Mrs. March. She held it down with her husband gone at war, not knowing whether he was alive or dead. She still continued to hold it down the first time Beth got sick, the second time Beth got sick. And after Beth passed away, she not only held it together for herself, but she held the girls together. The cast, all in all, I think was really great. When I was looking at the 2019 cast, I only knew Emma Watson, and I'm like, oh, okay. But yeah, so I know I'm missing somebody. Oh, Gabriel Byrne playing Friedrich. He was so adorable. I loved the chemistry that he had with Winona Ryder too. When he says like, the moment I met you, I knew you were a writer. And she asks how, and he lifts her fingers and she's got like the ink stains from the old school pens, like dipping in the inkwell and everything. Reciting the same poems together, helping her finally get her novel published, and thinking she's the one that got married when really it was her sister, and you could tell how heartbroken he was. Oh, that got me. But yeah, that's all I've got for the cast. So
Okay. Interesting little takes you have there. I can't wait for the rebuttal run. This is going to be a lot of fun. Let's talk about the feminism in both movies and our cases for who did it better. Because I'm taking the remake, I will go ahead and start. Why is feminism better in this? Several reasons. One, the character that you would least expect to have that role of feminism, Emma Watson, as being the mother, is everything, stands for everything that feminism is about, which is she made the choice to be a mother. She made the choice to want to raise a family and be that person. And that's not to say that there weren't other examples of characters trying to go out of their way to really have a career, such as both Amy and Jo. Jo, with her case, in the 2019 version particularly, Jo's case is that she wanted to feel that she could have a seat at the table when it comes to bargaining for her own salary. At first, she was only going to be given $500 and 5% of the sales of the movie. The $500 would have bought the copyright of it. And she negotiated at first to 10 and eventually settled on 6.6 for the rights, 6.6 for the sales of the book, plus she got to keep whatever copyright that was there. And you could really get that sense of enjoyment that she had as when she gets her first published version of the book Little Women. She's the boss. So she's literally standing in front of the printing press and watching everybody else kind of take over. And she's doing, that little teacher walk they do, folding arms across and kind of hightailing it with the legs outstretched. That's what she was doing. And you could get the realest sense of accomplishment and purpose that she finally fulfilled by having this. Now, she could tell that there was a certain way that she had to write, but there was one scene that really sold it for the publisher, which is his daughters had taken the script away from him and basically read about halfway through the book when they start begging him, what happens to the Little Women? What happens to the Little Women? And it was there to kind of show a little bit that representation of why that medium was so important to kind of reflect, because these little girls that he had that were probably expected to marry off into wealthy families, because that was a big thing. When I grow up, I'm going to marry myself into the richest of families and blah, 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 blah. Right. And while that may have still been the case for a lot of people, this movie really wanted to show some of the pathways and how those pathways would branch out into what we now have today in modern feminism. And it's been a long and uphill climb for a lot of that, but it's definitely been helped because of this. Finally, Aunt Marsh had all the money and she understood that she needed to that the family was going to be hurting because of it. But Amy's role in deciding to go to school in Europe and winning over Laurie, the reality is that she didn't necessarily want to win over Laurie, and Laurie didn't necessarily want to fully pursue that. But they realized that the connection and chemistry that they had between each other was way too great to show than a silly boyhood crush that he might have had at that time, which is how this movie played it. They didn't play it to be like, oh, well, I can't have your sister, so now I need to be part of the Marsh family in some way, shape, or form. Instead, it was, I accept you and I love you for who you are. And even that conversation between Laurie and Joe afterwards, where it was very clear. Laurie explained it to Joe. He goes, I cared for you, but I love your sister, and I love your sister very greatly, which is something that I felt was very important because it showed very much the disdain of allowing somebody the opportunity to again make that choice and to kind of show and to really grow that emotional intelligence, which is sometimes what gets conflicted in all of this, yeah, that is what I have for this. So, my friend, what is your rebuttal? I'm going to mute myself here so I can make fun of you later.
Okay. No, I mean it's pretty similar, the two movies, because of how what's the word I'm looking for? Like how you mentioned earlier, how to the T to the book it was. Like I said, when I first started watching it, I didn't realize it was such a feminist movie until Winona Ryder or Joe, she kind of starts questioning everything, like, why must it be this way, as I mentioned before. Especially when they went to, I don't know if it was like a ball or a party or something. It was Joe and Meg. And they see Laurie there, and Joe and Laurie start dancing, and then Meg like sprains her ankle or something, and he offers to take them home because he has his carriage. And she's saying no while Joe is saying yes. And it's, I didn't get it at first. And then the more I thought about it, the more I was like, well, Meg's trying to be proper. And Joe's just like, whatever. He offered us a ride. Like, let's go. Especially more and more when they've gotten so close, Joe and Lori, and nothing has happened. And then he's pouring his heart out to her, saying how much he loves her and how he wants to be with her. Nothing would make him happier than getting married, because he's moving to London. And she's like, yeah, no, like it's always been her dream to go to Europe and to write. And now suddenly she's like all these excuses as to why she can't go to London with him, when deep down it's because she doesn't want to go as his wife. She wants to go on her own, by herself, as a writer, as an author, and not as Lori's wife. And I moved here to be with him. I moved here to stay with him. Even that scene that I was mentioning earlier where they're all at the table and they're like make fun of women's rights in front of her, and and she kind of just spits it back out to them. But with Amy, little Amy, she was a firecracker since she was a kid. Goes to France with her aunt to go to school and to study art and painting and everything. Even then, like, does it for herself and kind of rejects Lori at the same time too. And I don't think it really had anything to do with the fact that he was in love with Joe prior. I think it was just because she was like, that's not what I'm here for. It's not what I'm interested in. She does end up giving in and falling in love with him. Not giving in, but just kind of brings her guard down a little bit, brings down the walls. Even their mom defends him when Aunt Marsh is saying like, oh, well, this one isn't engaged yet. She's a little too old. She's getting too old now. She's going to be too old to bear any children by the time she does get engaged and get married. This one's too loud. This one is too ignorant. and this one is too shy. Susan Sarandon did a great job at portraying strong women that she was raising by defending them. Even little Amy, when she was in school, she wasn't learning too much because she had a male teacher, and he believed that educating a woman was the same as, what did he say, educating a German cat or something like that? Like, there was no point. And Joe was livid and gave her her own homework to do. And how did Amy get back at her? She burned her entire script. I thought that was awful. But even as far back as the 1800s, when that was considered normal, that was like the norm, she said, no, that's, I don't care how normal it is, how long it's been going like this. This is not how it's going to be. We're all going to be smart. We're all going to be talented and educated. We're all going to be strong and independent. Even when the film was shot, like 1994, even then, I feel like women, we had our rights, but we didn't have too many of them. We didn't have all of them. We had more than we did in the 1860s. But even in the early to mid 90s, I feel like, I don't want to say it was controversial for this to have come out, but it definitely made a statement for when it came out. So that's what I've got.
Kudos to you on the education plot. That was,
I almost forgot about it.
Well, I'm really glad you brought that up, because that's a tough one, and that's a tough one to fight around. But no, you're absolutely right. In terms of the feminism side of that particular scene, that particular moment in the 94 film, it was powerful. It was, and Susan Sarandon's character, you're absolutely right. does play a much bigger role in this than I want to say Laura Dern does, because Laura very much in the case of this was she was perfectly fine, but she felt more like the best friend than she felt like the mom. So it kind of blurs the lines there. All right, were you ready for rebuttals?
Yeah.
Ready? You ready for this?
Ready to argue.
All right. I got to talk about the 94's tone because this is so sweet and campy and sometimes, and it's cozy. Here's how I feel about the 94 version. I feel like I feel like honestly, this is a movie that you could watch during the Christmas season and you could interchange it with a Hallmark movie. All right. But it's better acted than a Hallmark movie. I'll give it that. It's better acted and it's definitely better written than a Hallmark movie. But everything about this is very traditional and linear. You kind of get the idea of where everything is kind of going. You get this idea of like, oh, okay, well, this is kind of happened. But then there are certain aspects that are very weird. For example, the Christian Bale Winona Ryder relationship. What is that? Because that clearly didn't feel like best friends. It felt romantic to a certain extent. It felt like it was really going to lead to a romantic plot. So the scene that you have in your background was very jarring for this kind of movie because I kind of feel a lot for Christian Bale in this scene because he's sitting there and for the most part, hey, Joe, I'm back in town. She wraps her arms around him and gives him the big old caress of a hug. It's an embrace.
And I get what you mean. However, I think it was more of like a sweet friendship and not romantic. And the fact that when a guy and a girl, especially that young, are so close, one of them is going to catch feelings, and almost 10 times out of 10, you expect it to be the female to catch feelings. And no, it was him. It was the guy. I liked how different that was. So not a Hallmark movie at all.
But again, it felt very weird. And then let's talk about that relationship between Gabriel Byrne and Joe. There is some sweetness to it. Okay.
Oh, he was so cute.
He is. And that's a testament more to Gabriel Byrne as an actor. Because the way that it's written, you could claim that's grooming. This is a guy that's literally a teacher grooming a girl to kind of enjoy the aspects that he is and kind of eventually grooming her to kind of like him. They're sitting in the rafters together, kind of sitting there and be like, I am poor, but I'm able to show you this play that is totally spoken in German and I'm going to translate it to you.
If there was any grooming going on, it was to teach her how to be a proper lady in that time, and she wasn't having it. She was like, nope, not changing, don't care, sorry.
Because this, okay, that feminism scene,
the only thing she had changed, and I think a lot of it was to prove a point, was that she started publishing her stories as Joseph instead of Josephine.
Sure. And I agree that the one scene that I will give to the 94 was when given the opportunity to speak there, he asked for her opinion so that she could express it, which is a good thing. But there's some blurred lines of how to exactly feel about the two of them. Definitely there was chemistry for sure, and the fact that it did lead to a relationship, I can't really claim or proclaim to be for or against it. It just feels like it felt like the line between why she liked Gabriel Byrne more than she liked Christian Bale, who is of her age, because Gabriel Byrne is 20 years older than Winona Ryder, and it is very clear that he's 20 years older than Winona Ryder in this. Winona is
but that was a normal thing back then.
But Winona is smack dab. Winona is smack dab in her early 30s in this one. Gabriel Byrne is very clearly 50 in this movie. And there's this creepy, like, if I'm going to read stories about women that are like, oh, he was 21 and I was 17, and it's like, well, what do you say about this? You know what I mean? Maybe that's just me.
I mean, that was a thing then. Like, now it's totally creepy. Would I want to be with somebody 20 years older than me? No. 20 years younger? Hell no. But it was very common in the 1800s. So the fact that they did it in the movie so nonchalantly, it was because not only that's how it was written, that's what it was. So, and I feel like she had more of a connection with Friedrich because they were both writers, or he was like a philosophist, and he had a lot more of the same interests with Joe than she had with Laurie. He was very much more grown up, literally and figuratively, than Laurie was. And I think that's what attracted her to Friedrich even more.
Fair enough. The 2019 version, one of the things I'll talk about to kind of trash my own movie was some of the directing decisions in this. And when you're so used to a traditional and linear story, and mind you, when I said I watched this back to back, I meant same day within an hour apart from each other. And I'll be the first one to say I had more interest in the 94 version than I had in the 2019 version. And the reason why is the directing that took place.
Close.
No, I didn't say that. That is up for the readers that is up for the viewers to decide, my friend. That is not up to me. That is not up to you. That's not even up to God Almighty. Nah. So, anyways, the direction that Greta Gerwig decided to start this movie in is seeing it's Christmas Day. All right. In the 94 version, it's Christmas Day and the Hummels have nothing to eat. So would my darlings be so nice to give their Christmas breakfast over to them? It literally was the scene right before that when Joe had like overslept and they're getting ready to do the plays, and it's really nice. But in the 2019 version, the biggest issue that happened there was the direction that was there. When Saoirse Ronan comes downstairs with her brilliant idea, there's a nice little touch between her and her sisters, and then it's like they're in the same room acting, but they're not interacting with each other. It was like people are saying lines, and they're saying lines so fast that like you have to kind of really pay attention. It's almost as if they assumed that you read the book. It's almost assumed that they assumed you saw the 1994 or the 1933 version of this, or the 1971 version, as there's been 7 versions of Little Women to ever come out.
But mine's not even a classic.
Not even. No, the oldest version of this is 1933.
Well, dang.
I'm sorry, I'm wrong. 1917. The oldest version of this is over 100 years old. So, no, this isn't really a classic. but this is it was very strange to kind of see this whole acting, and we're sisters, but we're not interacting. Whereas the 94 version definitely has something that's better because of it, which is you go out of your way to make sure that everybody's doing their line reads and line cues, almost like a stage play. All right. I'm doing this. I interact. I go back. I do this, screen right, and whatnot. And I think that's going to play well with people. Look, if you throw this on at Christmas, you don't watch a Christmas movie for the plot. You watch the Christmas movie for something sweet and warmth, and it's going to feel like a cozy Afghan right by a fireplace and and you have a hot chocolate in your hand with marshmallows on top, and you're being cuddled by your significant other. Doesn't really matter, right? That's what you're going to get from the 1994 version. The 2019 version is not that. It's not cute. This is a drama piece. We're going to play it like a period piece, and this is going to be well acted. I think that hurts it more than it helps it, because in so many ways, people don't go out of their way to watch period pieces. People go out of their way to watch Christmas movies. Like, they'll say, "Oh, I want something nice for the holidays." That's why we buy ugly Christmas sweaters. That's why we buy Christmas tree ornaments, which only are supposed to be up for 2 months out of the year, or whatever you believe, unless you live in the South. It's why it's very much a seasonal thing. You could literally throw the 94 version in your staple. The 2019 is probably something you watch every once in a blue moon. And I promise you're going to enjoy it every single time. But it's not something you can watch all the time in my eyes.
Which one's not one you could watch all the time? The 94 or the 19?
2019. 1994, I feel like you could watch every year for Christmas.
I feel like you could watch it even when it's not Christmas time. Because yes, I mean, it did come out on Christmas in 94. The new one even came out right around Christmas time. A lot of it, there's three Christmases or something that you see in the movie. But for the entire point of the movie, I feel like this is something you could watch, in April or May just for fun. Whether it's a girls' night or a sweet date night with your significant other, or me, just laying down on the couch with my dog.
You just haven't invited people to cuddle over yet. That's where the difference is. I'm going to say this is kind of my final points. Why you should watch the 2019 version. It's because it's better. It's because you're going to like the cast a lot more in this. You're going to really feel like that the 1994 version is smack dab circled for the year 1994. Like, you're going to draw a big old circle and you're going to be like, what year do I want to feel like? I want to feel like the 1994 version of myself, whereas the 2019 version is almost also going to be kind of a timeless classic. Maybe not something you watch all the time, but something that's going to be like, this is what I want to see from women in acting. I want to see Amy, who is Brunt, who never got exactly what she wanted because she was given hand-me-downs all her life. So instead, she's going to go out of her way, to get exactly what she wants. And if what she wanted was to marry a very rich person, then she's going to marry a very rich person. If she's going to become an accomplished artist in Europe, she's going to become an accomplished artist in Europe. You're going to get the version of Meg who doesn't just who recognizes that even if she feels like her value is to be a mother, she's going to be the best mother that she could possibly be, and she's going to be there for her sisters. You're going to get the sense of Beth to realize that maybe her only connection to really feel important in this world is to be so damn good at a piano, that she's going to play the shit out of it and is going to play it magnificently. And you could really see that this person probably would have gone somewhere with her career if she had survived to that age. Mm-hmm. And finally, for Joe, because Joe in so many formats, and also for Timothy Chalamet, which I'll talk about in a second, because Joe is determined to be the best writer, and is determined to also do this as independently as she could. How she refused to go, how she wished that she was different, and how she wished she could just be that person that just ups and gets married and just becomes happy. But she refuses because it it burns out the fire that's inside of her. And even when the movie finally takes that turn for her to finally get with Friedrich, it was because she finally felt connected to somebody enough to recognize that she wanted to spend the rest of her days with. The final person, though, that really kind of steals the show from all of it, and I know that sounds weird, and I hate doing that, but Timothée Chalamet's performance as Laurie. If Christian Bale plays the traditionalist male in this, then Timothée Chalamet shows the vulnerability and the heartbroken version of being a man. You know, when you recognize, I know this is a feminist movie, but I know this is really to kind of and hold on. Let me rephrase that. This is a feminist movie, and it is okay to show male vulnerability as well, as male vulnerability can be portrayed correctly. And in this case, it is portrayed to a T with Timothée Chalamet. He goes out of his way to proclaim his love for Joe, and Joe immediately starts rejecting him. Joe immediately doesn't even go in for the kiss, doesn't even, see if she feels something there. He immediately starts rejecting him. And when he realizes that this is the person that he's wondering what could have been. And it's breaking your heart to see this guy get so sad. He's not breaking down crying, but man, he is well on his way to a really, really sad 6 months. Because that's
how I felt with Christian Bale in this scene specifically. Like, I was like, "Ooh." You should
really watch the Timothée Chalamet version of this scene, because it's heartbreaking. You feel for the guy, because instead of being like this mischievous, guy that's like, haha, I play pranks, haha, I'm sort of macho. Instead, I don't want to say he's nerdy, but he's reserved. And he only can really show himself in front of people when he's around the Marsh family. But he doesn't feel like he needs to belong with the Marsh family. Instead, he just feels like he can be himself when he's with the Marsh family, instead of just being like, I will find my way into being with the Marsh family. Instead, he's going out and he's breaking himself down in so many ways just to feel accepted, because in a lot of ways he wasn't accepted anywhere in his life. In a lot of ways, he feels the most connected to want to be a part of his family because of how much they want him to be a part of his family, unless you're Meryl Streep, but that's a different ballgame. The point that I'm trying to make is the reason why I like Timothée Chalamet's version a pinch better. Look, if I'm going to hang out with one of them, it's going to be Christian Bale. I'm going to hang out with Christian Bale, of course.
Yeah.
If I'm going to hang out... If I'm going to hang out with Christian Bale's Laurie, I'm going to hang out with Christian Bale's Laurie. But at least Chalamet, wears his vulnerabilities on his sleeve. Even when he shows up at the party with Amy, to see Amy, and he shows up with 2 girls, kind of playing like the douche version of himself finally. He's not afraid to show that, and he's hiding his own insecurities in the face of everywhere because Amy keeps throwing the fucking Fred Hampton's name in his fucking face. Excuse my language there, but that's exactly what's happening. And so when he's like, give it up for Fred Hampton, ladies and gentlemen, just to kind of showcase how ridiculous it was sounding to him, and to show that man, am I ever going to be that number one option? Am I ever going to be that number one guy? Am I ever going to be the version of yourself, the version of myself that people will love and honor and respect? And that, I think a lot of men younger than me and probably older than me can probably relate to more than hey, I'm a prankster, ha 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 ha. I had my own securities with my pranks, ha 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 ha. I do this, I do that, ha ha ha. I'm in love with Joe, and I'm going to try to kiss her. Oh, what do you mean she rejects me? Now I'm going to go to Europe and I'm gonna go to Europe and I'm gonna drink and I'm gonna party. Like I'm gonna have, and mind you, there are probably a lot of guys like that also. I know I was one, but Chalamet is more relatable to people nowadays than Christian Bale ever was. That's what I got. Go ahead. And I'm done. I will speak no more. I am muting myself.
I mean, I think we're pretty much done with the rebuttals, honestly, because I don't really have a whole lot more to say. I really did enjoy this movie, though. I kind of was asking myself, like, why did it take me all of these years to watch it? And now I kind of want to read the book, too.
The book's good. It has language that will be difficult to fully understand, especially because this was written in the 1800s, 1868, 1869, where Louisa May Alcott died in 1882. But it's definitely worth it. So I think we're just about wrapping this up then, huh?
Yeah.
All right. My friend Selina, where can they find you?
I am on Twitter at MexEgyptian. And then you can find me on the Back to the Classics Facebook page also. I'm constantly sharing stuff on there.
Definitely. And you would be able to find me on the Back to the Classics page or on my Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at David Dangernaut. But I'm going to be gone for a month. And it may be where I just kind of disappear off the face of the earth, and whether I come back April Fools or whatnot, we'll see. And, we'll kind of go from there. But, yeah, that is where you'll be able to find me. Of course, you can follow all of our stuff, any major platform at this point. I don't think there's a platform that we're not on. So if you just search up Back to the Classics podcast, I guarantee you'll be able to find our regular shows as well as Cinema Rehab there. So that's pretty much all I got for you guys. I want to.
Yes, we want to hear back from you guys too. We're going to be putting polls up on Facebook and Instagram. We want to know what your thoughts are.
Which one did it better?
One. Just let me know that I won. But we do want to hear from you guys.
And I'll be expecting, rounds of congratulations and maybe a stein full of beer once I'm back around perhaps from you for congratulating me on a job well done and a beautiful victory on my behalf. Thank you, Miss. And
it was lovely being reunited with you.
It's always lovely being reunited with you.
Don't tell Duval, but he was getting on my nerves.
Yeah.
Oops, did I say that out loud?
So that's where we are. I want to thank Selina again for having me on the show. I know I kind of took over the reins of this a little bit, but I've been kind of used to this. I've been doing this for a long time now. So thanks again. And this will be posted tomorrow, hopefully. And we will see you with the next episode. It should be Selina and Duval again. I'm really interested to see what you guys are going to come up with. And
it's a good one. I can't wait. I'm excited.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks again, and we will see y'all next week.
Bye.